Well, Latin America has been an incubator for terror tactics that have then gone elsewhere. Waterboarding, for example. Well, that I think was first used in the Philippines, but then in Latin America, it was widely used during the Dirty War, referred to as the submarine. And then we see it again in Abu Ghraib.
Mhm. So you wrote the go-to book on School of Americas, and Veterans for Peace had a whole School of Americas Watch project, and
Mm.
it's kind of faded out over the years because they kind of hid School of Americas, um, renaming it and relocating it. But tell us about the School of Americas because I know people are not going to be aware just how um, evil, yeah,
Yeah.
how evil it was.
Well, the School of the Americas was founded in the Panama Canal Zone in the aftermath of the Second World War as a training ground for Latin American military, mostly Army. It was underfunded and didn't really get a lot of traction until the Cuban Revolution came along. And then suddenly it became a very important place in the United States efforts to defeat not only defeat the Cuban Revolution, but to control anything that might look like it in the rest of Latin America. So it started receiving a lot of support. A lot of Latin American countries were sending their military cadets to train there. In 1984, it moved from the Panama Canal Zone to Fort Benning, Georgia. And then in the early 90s, thanks to the tireless work of Father Roy Bourgeois and a colleague of his, a veteran, Charles Litkey, who was a Congressional Medal of Honor winner, they managed to get, I believe it was through the Freedom of Information Act, a list of the graduates of the School of the Americas. And if you read this list, it read like a who's who of the death squad operatives, torturers, dictators of Latin America. People like Manuel Noriega, for example, the former strongman of Panama, or Roberto Dabuisan, who organized death squads in El Salvador. And what Roy and Charlie and others around them did was to start staging protests outside the gates of Fort Benning and demanding that the school be closed. And these protests over the years became bigger and bigger. And I believe it was like the early 2000s, they were really enormous. And there was a moment when the school really thought that its federal funding was going to be cut, and they changed their name to the Western Hemisphere Institute of Security Cooperation and declared that they were a completely different organization, and then kind of went forward that way. The protests continued for a while after that, but they then shifted down to the border as the border crisis became more acute.
Yeah, I
And
attended one of those in Fort Benning, and it was pretty amazing, just the energy and the
yeah, it,
creativity.
it was yeah, it was a really significant movement for a while, and I think it really rattled the military.
Mhm.
They they couldn't get rid of it. And yeah, and
And things like torture manuals aren't good publicity for the military.
exactly. Right. Right. Yeah.